I'd like to call the Saline City Council meeting to order. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And for the public's benefit, we would encourage you to sign in the back. On the back table to my left, there's also copies of the agenda on the back table, along with hearing devices if you need them. Members present this evening are myself, Mayor Marl, Council Members Seo, Dillon, Delorco, Camara Sulak, and Kraus, along with Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh. From City staff, we have City Manager O'Toole, Clerk Royal, Treasurer Bennett, Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director Green, Police Chief Hart. I don't believe Parks and Rec Director Scruggs is with us this evening. DPW Director Searles is here, along with City Engineer Fordyce. At this time, the Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. There were two modifications. The GBA proposal was pulled from unfinished business, and there was I believe, an HDC resignation that was also removed from the consent agenda.
Moved as amended.
Moved by CO to approve as amended, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. There are no absences, so we'll proceed to citizen comments on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Clerk Royal, I'll start with you. Did we receive any communiques in advance of tonight's meeting? Very good. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to any enumerated agenda item, whether that's an action item or a discussion item? You're welcome to speak. Just come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes.
Eric Grossman, Macon Road, Saline Township. I'd like to discuss the Macon Road resolution. I had sent a number of emails to you when it came up before. The 45 mile an hour is indicative of other speed limits of similar roads coming into town. So I don't see where changing them is going to be any benefit. The problem with the speed is the slow traffic merging into the 45 mile an hour. If people would turn on Huntington Woods instead of traversing down to Arlington, they could avoid all the problems they're having with people tailgating and honking at them for driving slow. You may get the county to do what they did on Bemis Road. You'll notice that the township sign is placed and the 25 keeps going past that and then ends, and they may allow it to be 25 up to that point and then go to 45. The other issue on the water, my job for the city for decades was dealing with flushing, and your biggest problem is the improper flushing. Until you attain the velocities to get that material out of the mains, you're not gonna proceed with clearing the water. You're just getting it moving around. The two size mains are 8-inch and 12-inch, and 8-inch main needs about 1,500 to 1,600 gallons per minute to move it. You want to move it at a velocity of 10 feet per second to scrub the mains. A 12-inch main, you need about 3,500 gallons to do the same thing, to move that at 10 feet per second. So I think what you need to do is go back to the unidirectional flushing, which turns a lot of valves and cleans mains with high velocities. We did that 15 years ago when we switched from nighttime flushing to daytime with the new plant. Until we got it cleaned, you need to concentrate on high velocities in confined areas, and that's just not happening. And until you, I think, go back to daytime flushing and concentrate on smaller areas and get the water moving through at a high rate, you're not going to get this resolved. And also the Henry Street Tower, if that goes down and is repainted before you get the water cleaned out, you're going to have some real serious problems, because the water flows are going to change The sediment sits in there like shingles on a roof, and when you run backwards, it rolls that up. So I wouldn't do the Henry Street Tower until after you get this problem taken care of.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman. Appreciate your comments very much. Are there additional citizen comments on agenda items? The record will reflect there are none. Thank you again, Eric. We will proceed then to the one and only presentation of the evening, which is the swearing in of 2 new officers, and we will have Chief Hart take the lead on this, along with Clerk Royal, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. It's my honor and privilege to introduce our 2 newest police officers here, Kevin Gibson and Justin Wilder. Kevin Gibson is a graduate of Brandon High School in Ortonville, Michigan. He earned his bachelor degree in criminal justice from Oakland University. He's also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, 124 Marines Charlie Company out of Lansing. He graduated from the Oakland Police Academy in 2017 and then immediately began his career with the Royal Oak Police Department, where he worked until he decided to join our family on September 1st, 2021. So Kevin is also engaged to be married to his girlfriend, now fiancee Nicole Eldridge, who is a second-year teacher with Saline area schools. And he will be, his future father-in-law, a retired sergeant, Stan Eldridge, will be placing his badge on him after Clerk Royal swears him in. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and turn around and introduce your family that's here tonight?
Hello, so my fiance Nicole is here, and both her parents, Stan and Brenda Eldridge, are also here as well.
Very good.
Very nice.
Thank you. Next, we have Justin Wilder, who's a graduate of the Bradford Academy in Southfield, Michigan. He studied psychology for several years at the University of Michigan Ann Arbor campus until he was led into policing and joined the Detroit Police Department. He graduated from their academy in January of this year and decided to join our police family on September 2nd. During his background, Officer Wilder was described by his references as honest, hardworking, friendly, high degree of integrity, caring, and someone they would want as a police officer in their community. All qualities that we are looking for as we start to build a wonderful future police department here. And Officer Wilder has a 1.5-year-old son, Kyrie, and he is a great partner to his girlfriend, Savannah. Justin's girlfriend, Savannah, will be placing his badge on him once Clerk Royal swears him in. Justin, why don't you go ahead and introduce your family that's here?
Sure. So I have a lot of people. So in this corner over here, we have my dad, Jeff, my grandfather, Frank, my girlfriend, godmom, Stacy, my girlfriend herself, Savannah, her mother, Alexis, holding my son, Kyrie, and we have my godmom in this far corner of the door.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Clerk Royal. We'll see how good they are at repeating in a cadence together. If you want to swear them both.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't want to make them sweat a little?
No. We've been doing that for about a week and a half now.
Can I car do I drive? No, I'm kidding. Raise your, good job, right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that you will faithfully perform the duties of the office of police officer in and for the city of Saline, state, county of Washtenaw, and state of Michigan, according to the best of your ability, so help you God?
There we go. All right. Very good. Why don't we go ahead and have Savannah and Stan come on up. I think we had a quick tutorial out in the lobby to make sure that, we get these badges hooked on right. They don't go straight in. Doing there, Sarge?
Been a few years.
All right. You can leave your hand if you want. Outstanding. That was a good move, Officer Gibson, having your future father-in-law put that badge on you. I like that. Maybe Nicole will do the promotion in a couple of years, right? Yeah. All right, so let's have Dispatcher Snyder and Sergeant Bolter, Officer Shanai, and our retired and retiree volunteer, Don Terry, come on up and surround our new family members. We'll all go ahead and take the oath of honor. So not only will you hold them accountable, they will hold you accountable as well. I'll step out front here. All right, everybody go ahead and raise the right hand. All in place. On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my integrity,
I will never betray my integrity,
my character,
my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will treat all individuals with dignity and respect,
I will treat all individuals with dignity and respect,
and pledge that my actions are dedicated
and pledge that my actions are dedicated
to ensuring the safety of my community
to ensuring the safety of my community
and the preservation of human life.
and the preservation of human life.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions.
Outstanding. And I will always maintain the highest ethical standards
And I will always maintain the highest ethical standards
and uphold the values of my community and the agency I serve.
and uphold the values of my community and the agency I serve.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chief, if I may, we want to congratulate our new officers and welcome them aboard. We're delighted to have you with us. And gentlemen, if you would approach the dais and shake our hands, I know that my council colleagues and I would love to welcome you to the city of Saline.
Good to see you
Thank you,
again. Congratulations. Good to see you. Welcome.
I thought you were going to put them on the spot and see if they wanted to say it.
Oh, we can do that as well. Oh, boy.
Okay, they all go.
Have those removed.
It's all right, it's all right.
Recording in progress.
We have bloopers already. I like it.
And yes, gentlemen, if you'd like to say any additional remarks, you are welcome to do so. This is your time. Speech.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to my family for coming out to support me, and thank you all as well for coming to support me and Kevin, and welcoming us into the Saline Police Department family. I'm just excited to start my career here, and I look forward to having a successful, long career here with you guys. I want to give a big thanks to Chief Hart for giving me this opportunity. Chief really impressed me with how, he approached me, and he has the highest respect for me, and that's part of the reason I'm here. So I'm really grateful to be here with you guys, and thank you so much.
I want to thank all the support I've received as well. My future father-in-law, Stan, supporting me through this all. My fiance gave me all the support, as well as everyone in the Saline Police Department too, helping my transition from rural over to here. I'm sure I'm going to be excited and transfer those experiences I've had over there and have a positive impact upon the community that I'll be serving here.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Awesome. Unless you want to stick around for an exciting.
Yeah, your guests are welcome to stay for the council meeting. I'm gonna get, okay, smart man. All right, thanks for coming. Okay, friends, we're going to proceed to the consent agenda now. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Gearba, did you want to remove item C-21-71, acknowledgement of receipt of request of waiver for tax penalties?
Yes, please.
Okay, so that item will be moved to new business. In fact, it will be the second item under new business. So Gearba moves to approve the consent agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dylan. All those in favor of the consent agenda minus item C-21-171 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to unfinished business, item 21-124, Macon Road Resolution. Let's simply start with a motion to acknowledge receipt of the June 9th, 2021 letter from Huntington Woods Homeowners Association.
So moved.
Moved by let Kraus be the mover and Gearba be the second. City Manager O'Toole, do you care to comment?
Certainly. At our last meeting where we discussed this,
the council officially tabled the motion to today's meeting. It's my recommendation that, along with that conversation that we had then, we defer again until the sidewalk is actually installed. That was the consensus that we reached at that date. It's just because this was officially tabled, we did have to include it on the agenda.
So City Manager O'Toole, first, I think it was postponed, not tabled. There is an important distinction because following proper rules, Robert's Rules of Order, you'd have to actually take from the table before you could even consider subsequent action. So just to be clear on that. And then second, you and I had a brief conversation earlier this afternoon. Do you think revisiting this issue then at our first meeting in November would be appropriate? Do you believe that would give the contractor sufficient time to complete the sidewalk and then subsequent to that, gather the appropriate data necessary to make an informed decision?
Yes.
Can Clerk Royal remind me of the date of our first meeting in November? Is it the?
November 1st.
It is at the first? Okay, very good. Okay, there is a motion on the floor to acknowledge receipt. Are there questions for the city manager at this time? There appear to be none. Then I'm sorry, Ms. Dillon, did you have a question?
I just wanted to follow up. I did have some questions that I sent to the city manager earlier. I'm not going to enumerate those here. Once there are responses, I will share them with the rest of the council, as I'm sure the city manager will do. So I'm glad that we are moving this forward.
Very good.
Future date.
If there are no additional questions or comments, we'll proceed to vote on the motion to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. How about a motion now to postpone action until our next, or our regular city council meeting scheduled for November 1st, 2021?
So moved.
Moved by Commander Sulek. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by CO. Is there any discussion on the motion? There is none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business, item 21-159, SSES Part 2 proposal. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the September 7th, 2021 memo from City Manager O'Toole and to approve or not to approve the proposal from Tetra Tech in the amount of $214,000 for sewer system evaluation study, Part 2.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
Moved by CO to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second? Was that seconded by Commander Sulek?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. City Manager O'Toole, would you like to begin and then yield the floor to Mr. Rubel from Tetra Tech?
Certainly. At our last meeting, we approved Part 1 of the SSES, which is the Sanitary Sewer Evaluation Study. We did anticipate, based on conversations with our liaisons at Eagle, that there would be some tweaks to the final scope of that study, and Part 2 reflects what we have reached consensus with them on is necessary to include. So this primarily includes additional services related to manhole inspections, dye testing, footing drain testings, and sewer TV inspection.
Very good. Should we entertain some comments from Mr. Rubel, Ms. O'Toole?
Yes, please.
Very good.
Good evening again. Just to, by way of introduction, you asked me last month to get started with the smoke testing component of this larger program, and I'm very grateful, weather-wise, that you did that. This 4 weeks has been invaluable. We are starting our third week already of testing, and I don't think we could have made it this fall without starting when we did. So thank you for that, and thus far, we've created a little bit of disturbance to your residents, but they've all been very polite, and I'm confident my staff have been as well. So, again, we knew about many of these components last month, but because we hadn't had final written approval by Eagle, we did not want to bring these that weren't quite as time-sensitive forward. So now we have clear direction from Eagle. We have an approved plan, which this proposal represents, and Ms. O'Toole talked about the components. I think the one thing that I would just call attention to is we will do a very limited amount of footing drain measurements from sump pumps. And I think we're still looking for volunteers, so this might be a good opportunity for anybody on council or in the audience or watching at home. If they have a sump pump in their basement, we'd love to hear from them. That will make our job much easier going forward.
For the community's benefit, remind us, though, the home has to be older than 1975?
We would like an older home,
Okay.
yes. Yes, because we believe those are probably more representative of a footing drain that may be connected to the sanitary sewer.
Okay. Obviously, it goes without saying, but most homes that are older than 1975 probably don't have the original sump pump. So that is not a stipulation or
Not the
a
original.
disqualifier.
No, any sump pump will do.
Okay,
So.
very good. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? Ms.
No,
O'Toole?
not at all. I was going to ask the same question, but if I may also add a note, you will see in my memo that I acknowledge that we are partially over budget on this particular project. Just to clarify, the additional funds would then have to come from reserve funds.
Okay, very good. Mr. Rubel, anything else?
No, I will say that I think, based on my experience of doing these in many communities, I think I've been very frugal with your money. We're still accomplishing an awful lot of good things, although it is a big price tag. I think if we weren't smart about it, it could be even larger, so.
Very good. Are there questions for the city manager or for Mr. Rubel? Ms. Dillon?
Thank you. Just one question, just for my own clarification, when you're talking about the manholes, there was 735 was mentioned, and then an additional 100. So is the 100 a reassessment of some of the 734?
No, that they are 100 that, for whatever reason, were not assessed before. We think largely they were buried and will need to be excavated by hopefully DPW or some other party before we can do the assessment.
Okay. And does that leave a certain number that will not be explored?
It will leave some within the community. In fact, probably most of the ones that I referenced were not buried. They actually have bolts and nuts that keep them secure. So I suspect there will still be some buried or paved over and so forth in town after we're done, but I think that contribution will be very small to the I&I.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions for Mr. Rubel or for the city manager? There appear to be none. Then we have a motion on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Rubel. We have a motion on the floor moved by Sses, seconded by Kamara Sulak, to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We come now to an item that was removed from the consent agenda. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the request for waiver of tax penalties. Moved by Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kamara Sulak. I don't think Treasurer Bennett is here, but I'm sure Assistant Treasurer Weberline is more than capable of addressing whatever questions, concerns you may have. Mr. Gearbaugh, can I start with you?
Yeah, the reason why I pulled this off, generally, we just acknowledge these when we receive it, but in this one, I believe there's a statement in there that says, under this section, and in one of the paragraphs, it is under this section that I refer this request to you for your action. I'm concerned of putting that on the consent agenda when it has that kind of request of us as a council member that somebody's searching out an action request. If it would have just worded, is it under this section that I refer this request to you, in the future, I would prefer it that way. That way, the individual would be expecting that we're actually going to be creating that going forward.
Right.
Miley, I'm sure you can pass that information along. I don't see any objection why we can't modify the verbiage of future requests.
Yep.
Very good. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Gearbaugh?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments on the motion? No? Thank you, Miley. Appreciate it. It's been properly moved and seconded by Gearbaugh and Kamara Sulak to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 21-172, conditional offer for employment for wastewater treatment plant superintendent. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the September 7th, 2021 memo from City Manager O'Toole and to approve or not to approve the appointment of William Briggs as water production and wastewater treatment superintendent effective September 14th, 2021, and to approve or not to approve the residency exemption request.
Motion to accept, acknowledge, approve, and approve.
Okay, it's been properly moved by Kamara Sulak to acknowledge, to approve, and to approve. And that was seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh? Correct. Very good. Let me start with City Manager O'Toole, and then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh and Councilmember Delorco were also part of the interview team. So the chair would be delighted to hear from those two subsequent to Ms. O'Toole's remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. Over the last 10 months or so, the selection committee has worked to identify a superintendent for our water and wastewater treatment facilities. This occurred over two separate posting periods, and we are extremely pleased to bring forward a candidate tonight that we believe meets all of the criteria that we sought out to find in a new superintendent. Not only does Mr. Briggs have the years of experience and the licensure for these operations, he also displayed to us that he would align well with the culture of the city of Saline. So I am recommending, and it is the committee's recommendation, that we extend this offer, and also because of the unique nature of his residency, grant that exemption. I'll turn it over to my fellow committee members.
Very good. Let me start with Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh and then transition to Mr. Delorco.
As council knows, we have been attempting to try and fill this position for a long time, and trying to get a qualified candidate and a candidate that wants to come here has been a struggle. With this request and this review of his resume and qualifications, he is coming from Hillsdale, which is a large community that has faced similar issues as we have had. He's done an expansion, a $9 million expansion that occurred at their plant just recently, and also because they have a hospital, a jail, numerous schools, all those aspects of which are a large system and impact, which we are facing probably in the future. That individual, I believe, will be able to address some of the concerns that we have at this point in time. As for the exemption for his residency, we've already done that for a number of individuals, and as part of it is a concern of how do we handle it, and I think Colleen or Ms. O'Toole has come up with some ideas of how we will handle that.
Recording stopped.
My apologies.
Hey. And with that, I think we're looking forward to have a permanent individual in there that will get us going and hopefully lead us to this new expansion that we see in the next few years, and I believe he's going to be a qualified candidate to do that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh, and thank you for serving on the interview team for this position. Mr. Delorco, would you like to share some remarks?
Yes, having had the opportunity to accompany Mr. Briggs on the tour of the wastewater treatment plant facility, became quickly apparent to me that he had a clear working knowledge of the field, and decades-long experience has well positioned him to serve the city in good stead. We were having really helpful conversations about ongoing issues at the plant. Mr. Briggs zoned in almost immediately on things that needed to be addressed and things we've been discussing. Yeah, I'm not really concerned about the residency requirement. I have full confidence that this individual will be responding to issues immediately as they present, and he comes with my full endorsement to the city of Saline.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Briggs, I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting. I know the face, though. Would you like to come forward and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are, your professional background, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Good evening. How are you all? I started my career in wastewater in the city of Wixom. Worked there for about 7 years, and then moved back to Hillsdale, where I'm kind of originally from that county, so it was kind of where I wanted to be anyway. So I moved back to the family farm, and it's been a very interesting ride, ups and downs all along the way, you know, how things go with wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants. We did do a pretty good job of completing the $9 million upgrade to the Hillsdale wastewater plant. Made a lot of difference in how it ran and its efficiency, and I look forward to doing the same thing here in Saline with your facilities. Look forward to working with Tetra Tech on the engineering part of it, and hopefully we will get a lot of things accomplished.
Very good. Well, thank you, sir. And let me appreciate your interest in the position. Assuming the motion passes, very much look forward to working with you. You do have impressive credentials and a pretty sterling resume. I also want to acknowledge the city manager, Mr. Delorco and Mr. Gearbaugh, and all those who supported the hiring process. And I'm particularly pleased that while this has taken longer than I think any of us would have liked, I'm very satisfied that this body, and more specifically the hiring committee, didn't just settle on somebody, that we worked hard and we took the time to find the right fit, somebody who had the qualifications and a commitment to excellence, which is what we're really striving for in the city of Saline. So I will be enthusiastically supporting this motion, and again, Mr. Briggs, look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there questions for city staff, Mr. Delorco or Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh or Mr. Briggs? Easy enough. Ms. O'Toole, you care to make additional comments?
Member Kamara Sulek has a question, so I'll let him speak
I'm sorry,
first, and then.
Mr. Kamir Sulek, my
okay.
apologies.
Just a couple quick questions. Welcome to Saline.
Thank you.
About how far of a drive is it from Hillsdale?
It's about 45 minutes. I'm on the east edge of the county, so
All
it's
right.
about 45 minutes, up
All right.
27 and across 12.
All right, nice. And then did you say that it was a 90 million or 9 million?
9 million.
9 million?
They probably could have spent more money, but Hillsdale, I don't think, has quite the tax base that you guys do. So it was, they used SRF funds, and, you know how that goes, how that works.
Yeah.
So they could do what they could do. I would have liked to see more done. I came in after the planning stage and kind of got dumped into the actual construction side of it. But, not to say that I would have been able to change anything monetarily, but there were a couple of things I would have tweaked. Just my opinion.
All right,
So-
thank you for your honesty. I think you've come at a good time to where the wastewater treatment plant and the water are on the upswing, and we're really making great plans. So look forward to working with you, and I will be fully endorsing.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Back to Ms. O'Toole.
In addition to your consideration tonight, I'd just like to add, I think the committee would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the exceptional work that's been done by the water and wastewater treatment staff, interim Superintendent Fetchick during this time, asking the team to step up for 10 months while we find the right candidate for this role was a really big ask, and they did a phenomenal job. So I'm very happy to bring Mr. Briggs on to complete the team, and hopefully, he will see very quickly that he's walking to a great crew.
Very good.
Great.
Appreciate you adding that, Ms. O'Toole, and I think I speak on behalf of the entire council when I say we are really blessed to have a committed team at our wastewater treatment plant and our water treatment plant. They did step up to the plate these last 10 months, and the community benefited from their efforts. So we extend our thanks to them, and like she said, you'll be working with a good team, and I'm sure you will make it better. So,
Great.
thank you. If there is nothing further, we do have a motion on the floor moved by Kamira Sulak, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh to acknowledge, to approve, and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Mr. Briggs, you're official. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, we move on now to new business item 21-173. This is Arboretum and Maplewood Flyget pumps. Did I pronounce that right? Flight, excuse me, okay. Learned something new. This will be a motion to acknowledge the receipt of the September 7th, 2021 memo from City Manager O'Toole and to approve or not to approve the quote from Kennedy Industries for 2 flight pumps in the amount of $60,003.
Move to approve.
Will you start with a motion to acknowledge receipt, Mr. Seal?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kamira Sulak. Ms. O'Toole, I'll start with you, and then when you have completed your remarks, you can yield the floor to Mr. Rubel.
Thank you. So attached is a quote for 2 flight pumps for our Arboretum and Maplewood pump stations. These pumps are planned for replacement, so this is part of our broader fiscal year 22 capital improvement project. One of the projects, the Maplewood project, will be fully funded through the CIP bond proceeds. The Arboretum project would be directly from the sewer funds. And as noted in my memorandum, that portion of the project is slightly over budget by about $5,705. So those would come from sewer fund reserves. However, we believe these are the right pumps for those facilities based on the information that we've gathered regarding current expectations, usage levels, and future usage. Mr. Rubel, if there's anything you'd like to add, please feel free.
I won't add much, just that Mr. Fetchick has kind of prioritized these pump stations as ones he'd like to see new pumps in to stay ahead of some sort of a crisis. I think we're going to handle these, the proposed way to handle this is a little different perhaps than in other pump stations we've done. Mr. Fetchig would like to have these in hand in case something happens this winter. On the other hand, the pumps are such that Kennedy Industries, who may normally install pumps for the city, doesn't feel qualified to do so. So we need to find a contractor to install these pumps. You authorized me to start with a pump station contract a few months ago. We are getting very close to getting permits and bidding for that. So the approach this time would be to pre-purchase these pumps, get them in the city's inventory, and then we'll make the construction contractor that we hire this winter install them, so that you have them in place and they can install them quickly once we get them under contract, then wait for their contract another 4 or 5 months before they're installed. So it's a little bit different. There's pros and cons to that, but Mr. Fetchig believes the pros of having that available and ready outweigh any of the negatives.
Seems reasonable to me. Are there questions for either City Manager O'Toole or Mr. Rubel? I'll start with Mr. Gearbaugh, then jump to Mr. Sulek.
I like this idea of being preventative for that, but isn't the Maplewood pump station supposed to be expanded as part of the Grand Saqua development?
Layer Farms.
The capacity was such that we were in good shape with Layer Farms. So this is pretty much a one-for-one capacity-wise.
Okay, so there isn't something that we're doing in terms of reconstructing that lift station to manage that, would make this?
It will be reconstructed as part of that pending contract, but it's more from a condition standpoint than a capacity standpoint.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't believe so.
Okay, Mr. Sulek?
Thank you. I also like the idea of being proactive. We need more of that for the wastewater treatment plant. About how long do these pumps last, typically?
You would definitely like to get 10 years out of them. Sometimes you can push that to 15 to 20.
Okay. What kind of warranty do we get?
You will get a 1-year warranty from the manufacturer.
Okay. And then how long will it take to get them in our inventory, and then the approximate time to install them once we have gotten a contractor?
Yeah, they take about 12 weeks to get in after. There's a review process before they're ordered. So it probably is more like 5 months before they're here. Okay. I would bet that's right about the time we're going to have a construction contractor on board. So
okay.
That is something they could get on very quickly.
Okay, great. Sounds like a good plan. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Sulek. Any additional questions? Ms. Dillon?
Thank you. Just to piggyback, on what Mr. Sulek had asked, on the warranty, would the warranty begin upon purchase or installation?
On delivery.
Okay, so we'll lose half of our warranty then?
You might get, say, 11 months instead of the 12, because they will be installed perhaps a month after they arrive.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions or comments? Easy enough. Mr. Rubel, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a motion on the floor, moved by CO, seconded by Sulek. If there's no additional discussion, there appears to be none. We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of acknowledging and approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We come to the discussion portion of our agenda. First up is Commission, Committee, and Task Force reports from council members. Please, Mr. Sulek.
Okay. So the Saline Youth Council met on the 18th, and it's putting a lot of work into our purpose and mission statement, which is a good task for these future young leaders, and also updating the membership application and bringing it up to current standards. And these students have really put forth a lot of interest and energy. Next, the Arts and Culture Committee met on a couple weeks ago and discussing exhibiting the art at the 109 Exchange, and then budget allocations for the next fiscal year, or this fiscal year, including the art around Saline and the Bixby Marionette storage. And then thirdly, the DEI task force has met on the 8th, and we discussed, as we all know, the 2 DEI training sessions held here earlier today. And we are also going to be holding a presentation tomorrow at the Saline Senior Center. And then we have also dug into potential grants that the task force could apply to. So we're doing some deep digging. And then if everybody's not aware, the Hispanic Heritage Month is recognized from September 15th to October 15th. We are still selling our community cookbook right here, and a couple other items like mugs and flags, and even tote bags. To purchase, just go to our website at salinedei.org or Facebook or Instagram.
Very good.
Buy a cookbook. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional committee commissioner task force reports. Mr. DeLorco.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let everyone know the Environmental Commission has successfully scheduled a tour of our recycling facility through GFL in New Boston. We will be taking that tour on September 29th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's been brought to my attention that there are a couple of members of the Environmental Commission that will not be able to attend, so that creates 2 or 3 vacancies. So if there's any staff members or anyone from council interested in taking the tour, please let me know at your earliest convenience. The Code Review Task Force met, and we're embarking on the work of evaluating the ordinance for recreational marijuana. And the first step to that process is going to be soliciting feedback from the public, much like we did for the medical marijuana ordinances. And with City Manager O'Toole's help, we're getting that survey off the ground in the very near future. So thank you very much.
Good. Let me jump now to Councilmember Kraus, and then I'll piggyback to Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you. The Healthcare Task Force has been running the focus groups all summer, and we have people who have been sending in information on email, their own experiences, and then we're also going to partner with the Senior Center in October for their health fair. We will have a presence there and be talking to residents. Our next meeting is coming up on September 27th, but we are on schedule and doing really well and getting ready to start crafting the second, more robust survey that we're going to do with Commissioner Shannon Beeman to the rest of the southwest portion of the county. So we're on schedule and doing well.
Very good. Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you. A couple to report from the Fireworks Committee. Just a reminder, the city will be hosting fireworks on Saturday, October 9th. It will be a family-friendly event. It'll be held at Crabtree Field, which is behind Liberty School. We are trying to corral it into, instead of using the entire campus this year, people are free to utilize areas, but we will have a concentrated area on Tebow Lane. There will be food trucks, there will be games and activities, there will be music, and that will be the centralized viewing zone. So there will be maps and flyers all around town, so we're looking forward to seeing everyone there. And from the Parks Commission, we had a great response to our Green Thumb Award nominations, and the committee is currently evaluating all of the nominations, and we're looking forward to announcing our winners very shortly. And we are in the process of planning some new events. The Nature Walk series was very well received, and so we're hoping to have some additional programming in the near future.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any other report or commission, committee, or task force reports?
Mayor, just one.
Please, Mayor Pro Tem Gabriel.
Rec Task Force met this last weekend to come up with some recommendations and such, not the formal report, but items that'll deal with fee increases and hours of operation and some other slight recommendations that we'd like to have implemented by the beginning of next calendar year. So those will be coming forward in
October 4th, yep. Very good.
Parking lot behind Benny's Bakery, parking lot number 3, is that? Does anybody know for sure?
4.
4?
Four.
It's 4, yeah.
I'm sorry, okay, thank you. It'll be there and on the street and South Ann Arbor Street. So please come one, come all. It'll be Friday and Saturday, Friday evening and all day Saturday. Come out and support your local businesses and some of your local clubs. Mr. Roth will be there serving, cooking his famous bratwurst for the Saline Lindenberg Friendship Group. And I'm sure there'll be others there as well, serving other good foods and ice cream and so on. So please come on out this weekend. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any other reports or announcements? Mr. Kamara-Sulek and then Ms. Kraus.
I just want to piggyback on Councilman Seal's comments and add that Saline Main Street still has openings for volunteering at the event, and especially at the beer tent, where you will get a free ticket for volunteering. Many of us do this every year, and it's great fun and great music. It's well attended, so hope to see you all this weekend.
Very good. Councilmember Kraus.
I just wanted to say how nice the 9/11 memorial was. Several of us were able to attend, and the turnout was great. The fire department and the police department honoring our first responders and those who are not with us any longer as a result of what happened on 9/11. And so it was nice to have the police, the fire, and all of us there remembering them in such a public way, and indeed thanking them for their service, the ones who are still with us, because it is a dangerous and thoughtless job sometimes. But it was really nice to see, and it was really well attended, so I was pleased.
Yes, it was. Thank you for your attendance and for your help with Saturday's event. Much appreciated. If there are no additional reports or announcements, we are going to transition to the third item under the discussion, which is an extension tree at 247 Nichols Drive. I believe I emailed information out pertaining to this issue about a week ago, and then there was an abbreviated memo in your council packet that was distributed this past Wednesday. The gentleman who resides at 247 Nichols Drive, Mr. Mike Puckett, is here to address any questions and concerns, as is our DPW director. I will preface, I did have a conversation with Mr. Puckett late last week. He can correct me if I'm wrong. If between now and our next council meeting, if folks would like to reach out to Mr. Puckett or meet him on site at his property to inspect the tree firsthand, I think that would be fine and appropriate. I don't see any inherent problem in delaying action or consideration on this issue if council chooses to take action another week, noting that, of course, because of the holiday, we have council meetings back to back. But I do know that Mr. Director Searles has an opinion on this. Larry, did you want to come up and share any remarks? And then if Mr. Puckett had anything that he would like to say, I would be happy to entertain those thoughts as well. The roots have extended far into the property and are adjacent to the foundation of the home. My personal opinion, and I've spoken to DPW, I've been on site, I've had multiple conversations with Mr. Puckett. I concur that the tree is healthy. My own personal opinion is I do believe it has outgrown its usefulness in that particular location and needs to come down. Now, good people can have respectful disagreements. Obviously, it's a decision that ultimately needs to be made by this body. And to my previous point, if you feel like you'd make a more informed decision by visiting the site and taking a look at it firsthand, I think that would be reasonable and appropriate.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Any additional questions? Mr. Gearbaugh.
I guess this may be for Mr. Cyril, but also Colleen. What is our precedence on doing this? I can understand where we have some kind of criteria and activities that would identify why we would remove this tree, but I'd be more concerned that everyone would want to remove every tree. And so somehow we would have to come up with some kind of criteria. I don't disagree with the mayor. Silver maples are a pain when they get to be this size and they become a messy tree. It's just when and where do we do this, and what is the reasoning behind it? That's my bigger concern, because I know we have a lot of legacy trees in town that I would hate to see being taken down out of our extensions, because once they're gone, they're lost. So that would be my concern.
Sure. Right now, we have a policy in place for how we handle these type of requests. Our arborist goes out, assesses the condition of the tree, and the policy is we do not remove healthy right-of-way trees. There has always been the option to appeal to council any existing policy or procedure, administrative procedure. So I suppose that remains the same, but to Mr. Gearbaugh's point, certainly you may wish to consider if there are extenuating circumstances in this case so that we don't create a precedent of, just removing trees upon request.
Good, Mr. Gearbaugh?
I'm just gonna say, because I know, having lived on Tower, I had the same issue with the sewer line, because I had to have it cleaned out every year, but unfortunately, it's this type of sewer line that was put in. It's the tile that unfortunately is, regardless of what, tree roots are gonna get into it. And I don't know how we would solve that problem without taking every single tree down on Tower, and mainly all in the rolling meadows neighborhood.
Sure. Mr. Delarico, let me jump to Councilmember Dillon first, since she had her hand up first, and I'll piggyback to you. Janet, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you. Mr. Stoles, I do have a question. Was there an opportunity to assess other trees in that area? Are there other similarly situated trees that are the same size, that have the same issues?
There's a lot of silver maples that are very large in the extension.
Okay.
That are existing now.
Because I would have the same concern that Mr. Gearbaugh does, is I don't want to set a precedent if there is an existing precedent, or maybe it's a policy that needs to be revisited. It does look from this picture as though the sidewalk has been ground down at one point, so obviously there was some sidewalk lifting. It is of great concern, looking at this one photo, that there are that level of tree roots all the way that close to a home. So I guess I would like to sort of look at what the evaluation process is and see if we need to revisit that idea.
I will, share with council, there's many issues with sidewalks related to extension trees. The two are always going to conflict, right? We do want that streetscape, we do want that beauty, and we do want to keep the trees, and being that close to sidewalks, they're going to cause issues. We don't want to start taking the trees out because of that. We'll make the cement repairs as needed.
Mr. Delarico? I'm sorry, Janet, was that?
I'm all set, thank you
Okay,
very
yep,
much.
my apologies.
Yeah, I just
Please, Jim.
want to speak to the idea of it being beyond concern of the sidewalk. We just spent a fair bit of money to have Nichols redone and that curb put there, and that tree looks like it's about to pretty much destroy that curb. And as far as precedents go, if we structure this as an extenuating circumstance, any time the homeowner's foundation is being threatened, or the infrastructure, the sewer main is being threatened, that can be the criteria by which we set to consider these things on a case-by-case basis. It doesn't necessarily have to set a precedent. And we can also take the policy into code review and make updates or changes if needed. I don't see why this should preclude us from potentially protecting the city's infrastructure and preventing the homeowner from having problems with the foundation of their home. I mean, this is an extreme case. I don't think every tree that's in the extension that it has outgrown its use, the space that it's allotted to, is going to be threatening the foundation of a home or a sewer main, so.
I absolutely agree with you with the foundation. That's pretty unique to get the roots that
Yes.
far, and they
Yes.
do get aggressive. I would have to say on the sewer lead issue, the tree roots do not cause holes in the sewer lead.
Okay.
They grow into existing holes. So once you take this tree away and take the tree roots away and they go away, you'll still have infiltration in those same holes that the roots got into.
Right.
And you'll have some sewer lead issues. But the foundation, that one, generally speaking, it's not at risk from a tree. Looks like this one might be.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Commander Sulek, please.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Delorco stole most of my thunder, but I would like to echo that and looking at amending the policy and having some additional criteria. Because looking at this and not having a full view of all the leaves, it sure looks like there's a massive root structure, and I think it would be worth, the safety and preventing more damage to our streets and to our homeowners' basements. But obviously, we have to do this in a deliberate and fair way. So I would like to see the Code Review Task Force dig into this. Thank you. Oh, wait, one other thing.
Please.
Sorry. Is there any data on damage, deterioration from large trees to homes?
I don't know if that's ever been collected. I think as homeowners, we know if we have a tree too close to our basement, we're at risk. I think it's rare. I think it's very rare to see that kind of roots at the surface coming from a tree that far away. But we can see by the pictures, in this case, it exists. The tree roots are up against the foundation. But I think it's pretty rare.
Okay. And sorry, one other question. Where is the water line connection from the street to the house?
I didn't actually look that up. Give me a few minutes in the back. I can tell you.
To the, if you're looking at the tree straight on, sewer is to the right and the water is to the left. And when Brian and I had a talk 3 months ago, I think, I don't know, that I've had 30 emails back and forth. And all of a sudden, the water line and the sewer line were marked because Brian was sure it was going to come down. And I've always told him, I said, you don't have to put another tree in there. Because that was one of the things DPW told me. We can't afford trees. I said, I don't want another tree in there. I didn't put this one in. It was there when I moved in. And it's been nothing but a pain in our neck since over the last 5 years. This is probably a 2-year process, Brian.
Yeah, probably.
That you and I have talked about.
Yeah.
So what's the potential for the root system to damage the water and sewer lines? And maybe that could be a criteria in the future.
In my career, 22 years, I haven't had a tree root damage a sewer main or a water main to the point where it's caused a problem. Water service, I've seen that happen, where tree roots have gotten into it, it's 5 feet deep, grabs that copper and just crushes it, pinches it off, breaks it. Sewer leads, generally, they're deep enough, but there's times that roots grow in them, into the lead. Again, what we're seeing in that case is usually a lot of old clay pipe. The gaskets get small and the roots go in there. They love the nutrients, and they can be a big problem. Just to the system, small root runs through the lead, large root grows in the main, and then you have issues with backing up other people's homes too.
All right. I appreciate you explaining that. I feel much more comfortable with some of the ins and outs of that. So thank you. And that's all.
Let's do this unless there's objection from the dais. Again, I don't see any inherent problem with waiting a mere week because we have council meetings back to back. Again, Mr. Puckett has been gracious enough. Again, Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong, but any council member is welcome to visit his property and take a look at the tree and the roots that are extending well into his property. I think the concerns that have been articulated from the dais about precedent are reasonable and appropriate. I'm sure I can work with staff to maybe draft an abbreviated policy that addresses some of your concerns, but also outlines the criteria that have been articulated by Mr. Delorco and others. We can revisit this as a discussion item at the next meeting, and obviously the group isn't beholden or isn't required to take action, but we might be in a position in a week's time to take action on this matter. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Actually, you got to hang tight because you're up for the next issue. And Mr. Puckett, I'm assuming that I can share with council your email address and cell phone number tomorrow in case they want to reach out? Yep. Very good. Okay. Yep, and we'll revisit this on the 20th, Mike. Thank you. Let's transition now to the last discussion of the evening, which is water quality. Obviously, it goes without saying. I think everybody on council has been made aware that there have been a number of concerns, phone calls, emails, and survey responses pertaining to poor quality of water throughout the community. Cloudy, rusty, brown. I think fact, it's not a matter of thinking. I know that I speak for the entire city and council when I say that the issues of late are not acceptable and that we will work expeditiously to resolve those. This is a matter that I've discussed with the city manager, I would say probably half a dozen times in the past week. Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. As most of the community is aware, we did launch a water quality survey, I think that first week or second week in July. Ms. O'Toole in just a moment will confirm some of the details, but we received very few inquiries and concerns pertaining to water quality in July and August, and then they have intensified the last probably week and a half. So we have a number of suggestions, or we have a number of ideas, on how this can be addressed and resolved in the very near future. But at this time, I'll turn it over to the city manager, and then I think she'll yield the floor to the DPW director.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, your comments there are accurate. When we launched the survey, we were averaging 1 to 2 survey responses a week. Certainly within the last, I'd say, 10 days or so, we've seen almost 24 responses of this nature. What we have done and what we continue to do is map those locations, the quality that they're seeing at those locations, the timing to determine and to help us identify if there are unique aspects of where issues are occurring, along dead ends, along stretches of roads, where maybe there is a system-related problem. So as we continue to gather that data, in the meantime, we've been discussing our internal strategies, and one of those steps will be to launch a new way of addressing submitting water samples. So today, Mr. Fetchick and I worked out a plan to have residents be able to pick up as well as drop off water samples here at City Hall, which is a little bit easier than trying to arrange a time to get to the water treatment plant. So he and I will be working on that plan, and more information will come out in the next few days about how residents can pick up those bottles and return those bottles and get the results back. But I'll also now kick it over to Director Searles to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the distribution system and some of the things that we hope to address.
Okay, so you have a map in front of you where this is actually only 12, 13 days. I believe in September, we're up to over 26, 27 actual complaints. That's not counting a few that came through phone call and email. The issue that we first looked at, we wanted to make sure that our pressure was good, and try to identify a problem area. And unfortunately, this is not a specific problem area. We looked at our water main breaks. We had a couple of those. We looked at our water tie-ins that had shutdowns and valve turnings. None of that is really pointing into a direction. So what it leads us to is it's time to get the water main flushed. Typically, we actually have it scheduled for the second week of October. Unfortunately, I wish we could have started it a little bit earlier. That's really with it being so spread out, and a lot of the complaints came with some details, which is great. I wish we had more details, like how quickly it cleared up or didn't, and whether it was isolated in the home. We had a few that were probably hot water heaters that need to be flushed, and I'd like to get back with some of the residents when it's only in the bathtub and it's not anywhere in the house. You're probably pulling out some rust out of your own hot water heater. Some were in houses that had filtration systems, and a few of them we were lucky weren't even on our water supply, so we didn't have to map those. But the real deal with this system right now is we have to flush it. It needs flushed.
Is there any ability to fast track the main flushing from early October to later this month?
The answer to that would be the first week of October, because we have Summerfest, because we have the Fall Blast, because we have the cemetery cleanup, and we've lost one of our full-time staff, went somewhere else. I just don't have the man hours to go.
But we target that first week in October.
Yes.
And you're comfortable with us telling our residents and businesses first week in October to begin a comprehensive main flushing?
Yes.
And also, I don't want to go down this bunny trail this evening, but because our meetings are back-to-back, perhaps you can report out in a week's time on the 20th. But Mr. Gearbaugh and I had a conversation today. We received some feedback. We received some additional feedback during the public comment period about the manner in which we flush mains. And there's the potential of doing that better and resolving some of these issues in the future. Again, I don't want to go down that bunny trail this evening, but I'd like you and your staff, with the assistance of the city manager, to assess that and address that publicly in a week's time.
Absolutely, and I've actually talked to Eric as well.
Okay, very good. And Colleen, to double back to you real quick, the containers for individuals to retrieve to provide us water samples, those will be made available by when?
My goal is to have them available by Wednesday or Thursday of this week.
Okay.
I have the physical containers, I just need to write up the instructions to go with each of them.
Okay. And as you and I talked today, we're going to have our IT generalist, Sarah Massey, do a blast on our website and social media about, one, collecting a container if you would like your water tested. Two, that we are going to begin a comprehensive main flushing in early October. And three, that certainly individuals and business owners and operators have the right to lament and complain about the poor quality of water on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. But what is helpful to us in actually resolving this issue is if they fill out that survey. And I would further add, if you're having an issue that you believe is egregious and it's after hours and you don't know who to contact, I'm always available. Text me or call my cell phone any hour of the day, any day of the week, 734-272-3654. I've had a couple people reach out already. But again, long-term, if we're going to identify what the problem is and move aggressively to resolve it, we've got to have that data. We've got to have your contact information, we've got to have your address, and we've got to know the scope of the issue that you and your family are dealing with.
And Mayor, if I may add, I think the survey was great, and it was really a good eye-opener, because some of the information we got was very detailed and really worked to help us. But without a long process of contacting the resident, finding, connecting with them, I would really like to push, when we get to the meter change-out program, that two-way interface with the dashboard. That would have been a perfect platform that if we had incomplete data, we could have came back with, can you please tell us about this? And in the emails, I was able to work with a lot of the residents in a more comprehensive way, but I think blasting that information out and getting it back and forth would keep us in front of this. The real water quality issue, and I don't believe it's safety, I believe it's aesthetic on the water, but we want to deliver good water. We might have been able to carve out that window and maybe started some of this flushing to resolve it, because we could have identified the problem faster.
Right. Before we open it up for questions, because we now have two years of data, and I'm happy to share with you, Director Searles, what I have on file from 2020. But it seems like at the tail end of summer, beginning of September, the number of inquiries and complaints, they intensify.
Okay.
And in fact, the data from this summer is we received relatively few complaints in July and August. In my office, prior to the survey being launched, I may have received a text message or email here and there.
Yeah.
So we've got some data to suggest that this has been a problem now twice, in 2020 and in 2021, tail end of August, beginning of September. Beginning in 2022, can we fast track or get on the schedule to do a main flushing earlier?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I didn't know that data was available.
Yeah, well, my bad, and you and I can chat offline, and I can share with you what I have on file from 2020.
Yeah, because everything on this map says had we started flushing 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't be here right now.
Right, okay. Are there questions or comments for city staff? I'll start with Ms. Dillon.
Thank you, and thank you for adding this to the agenda tonight. It was my request because it has become overwhelming on social media. My first question is, we've said it over and over again, so the water that's coming from the plant is clear. So it's in the system, once it's leaving the plant, is where the problem is coming from?
Yes.
Okay, so we do not have contaminated water coming out? Okay,
No,
so-
and I did confirm with Mark, they can see it coming out of the plant at production, and it's crystal clear.
Okay, fantastic.
I can also add to that for the public's edification. The distribution system is tested weekly for contaminants of that nature, for bacteria. And there are no contaminant concerns from the plant or within the distribution system based on our testing.
Do we know if there has been any samples tested to date from households?
Well, we test, we consistently, we're required to test, so we are testing still. The nature of these complaints with the brown and discolored, it is rust. It is rust. It is the inside of the pipes, and it is getting into the service lines. But yes, the back-T sampling is consistent and done in accordance with Eagle, and we're staying in compliance, and it's always testing safe. It's just terrible to look at.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So do we know, have any residents had their water tested? Do we know of anything? Has anybody provided any data to us?
I do believe some residents, Mark indicated that at least 2, possibly 3, though the third one was a case where a salesperson had added something to the water, so it wasn't really their water, but 2 residents, one in Huntington Woods, and another, I can't recall the subdivision right now, but yes, Mr. Fetchick has performed water sampling for other residents.
Okay. So I guess, jump to the tag is the water currently safe to drink?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Additional questions, Mr. Gearbaum, then I'll jump to Mr. Delorco.
As you mentioned, a couple items like water heaters and so forth, is there some information or additional sharing of procedures or whatever that homeowners should be able to do that would help alleviate that issue when it's limited to their home and it's not necessarily the system? So maybe we had some instructions about flushing your hot water heater and anything else might help too.
With individual units, there would be some kind of a maintenance recommendation. My personal hot water heater, I flush it every year. It says to flush it every year. You turn off the supplies. There's a hose bib on the hot water heater. You put a hose in it, you run it to a drain, and you open it up and let it drain out. And then you don't end up with a lot of that rust buildup inside your hot water heater. It also prolongs the life of the hot water heater. But every manufacturer has a recommendation, and I don't think it would be less than once a year.
Can I jump in real quick? City Manager O'Toole, on that water quality survey, you do a really good job of providing essentially a disclaimer at the beginning. Noting Mr. Gearbaugh's question and Mr. Searle's answer, could we expand that verbiage a little bit?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it would also be beneficial, I imagine, as part of our public communications on this, not just on the water testing part, but to also have some common tips and tricks to share with residents when they see these issues. And I'll work with PR specialist Massey on that.
Very good. Sorry, Mr. Gearbaugh.
No, that was fine. Appreciate it.
Anything else, Mr. Gearbaugh?
No.
Councilmember Delorco.
Thank you. I appreciate your effort on this, Larry. I think it's important to highlight that no matter how much we try to convince residents that the water is safe when they see the iron, they're not going to believe you. That's just the prevailing human psychology. So I think that the idea that Mayor Marl had some great questions and some great comments about altering the timeline in which we do the flushing. If we were to do the flushing earlier, maybe we would avoid running ourselves into some of these situations. And I think Mr. Grossman's comments about a more targeted unidirectional flushing approach that will achieve the appropriate velocities to actually remove the sediment out of the distribution system will be key to solving the problem.
And again, I completely understand. I look at the pictures as just, if I wouldn't drink it either. And
Yeah.
as I understand and get to know the system a little bit better, as the mayor said, he had some data, we could have flushed earlier.
Yep.
And we wouldn't be here.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add, City Engineer Fordyce shared with me that part of our current strategy to install a third high service pump at the water treatment plant is geared at addressing that issue of achieving the scouring velocity that we need.
Yeah.
Good. Any additional questions or comments?
Just one there.
Oh, please, Mr. Gearbaugh.
It would be helpful to have the clarification of where there were non-city complaints where it was not our water system, just so that we understood.
I can go back through the survey.
There was some of that information out on social media. We'd like to correct that.
Okay.
So I think what I would ask the city clerk is to keep water quality on as a discussion item for our next meeting on the 20th. If you can provide a few more specifics on main flushing, that'll take place that first week in October. That would be beneficial not only for council, but for the public. And City Manager O'Toole, if you could provide an updated map of where we receive complaints between now and the 20th, I think that would be beneficial as well.
That spreadsheet good enough?
Yeah, the previous one.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Okay,
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah. All right. Thank you both.
thank you.
Well, we proceed now to public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward and make a comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. I'll start with the city clerk. Clerk Royal, did we receive any communiques in advance or during tonight's meeting that the individual or individuals wanted read during this public comment period?
No, sir.
Very good. Are there any comments from the audience? The record will reflect there are none. Is there any other business to come before Saline City Council this evening? Please note our upcoming meetings, including a work meeting at 6 p.m. on the 20th to discuss the dam, and a work meeting on the 4th to discuss the rec center, specifically some forthcoming recommendations from the rec center sustainability task force. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to convene into closed session to consider legal opinions of the city attorney in regards to an administrative consent order. City council will reconvene into regular session at the conclusion of the closed session. Is there a motion to convene?
Move to convene.
Moved by
Second.
Gearbout to convene. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Dillon. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember CO,
Yes.
Councilmember Camaro Sulak,
Yes.
Councilmember Del Orgo,
Yes?
Councilmember Dillon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gearba,
Yes?
Councilmember Kraus,
Yes.
Mayor Morrow.
Yes, we are convened into closed session at 8:22 p.m. And again, we will reconvene at the end of the closed session. A motion to reconvene into regular session at 8:38 PM.
So moved.
Moved by Gearboss, seconded by Camara Sulak. Clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Camaro Sulak,
Yes.
Councilmember Seal,
Yes.
Councilmember Del Orco,
Yes.
Councilmember Dillon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gearbox,
Yes.
Councilmember Kraus,
Yes.
Mayor Morrow.
Yes, we are reconvened into regular session at 8:38 PM. The chair would be happy to entertain now a motion to approve or not to approve administrative consent order ACO-05485 with the State of Michigan Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy, and to authorize the city manager O'Toole to sign.
Move to approve and authorize.
I'll let Gearbob be the mover, and if you're comfortable, CO, you may be the second.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Very good. Okay, discussion. I'll begin, and if there are folks who'd like to add something to this, that would be fine. Let me begin with the obligatory thank yous. I want to thank legal counsel Rock Wood for his work on this. City staff, in particular, our folks at the wastewater treatment plant, city manager O'Toole. I'll also give a shout out to Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh and Councilmember Dillon, who served on sort of the steering committee for this. That's for lack of a better way to articulate it. And also we received significant assistance and counsel throughout this process from Mr. Brian Rubel and his colleagues at Tetra Tech. So Brian, thank you very much. I have no objections to the substance of the administrative consent order. I do, however, emphatically object to the financial penalty, which is both excessive and arbitrary. I'll add that at no time during the process has Eagle provided metrics, criteria, or any written documentation to justify the financial penalty that they are proposing. Conversely, based upon my own analysis and criteria obtained through the EPA, I believe the penalty should be approximately half of what's being proposed. Additionally, I find it curious that other municipalities and utility systems, authorities that have actually discharged raw or partially treated sewage into a water system or tributary, receive fines that are significantly less than what's being assessed to the city of Saline. The only logical conclusion one could reach is that penalties are assessed by whim and caprice rather than by objective analysis or well-established criteria. Throughout this process, the city and its legal team have aggressively pursued other options apart from financial penalties. One such example is a project in lieu of penalty program, which theoretically allows municipalities, and utility systems the ability to pursue environmental projects, ergo reducing or eliminating fees. On the surface, this is a very appealing option. However, the program is antiquated and essentially useless. The rules are too cumbersome and complex, and realistically, no project will ever qualify. In summation, I do not question the integrity or motives of state regulators or officials at the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. I do, however, question judgment, and quite candidly, I refuse to be treated in this manner. The city of Saline has devoted significant time to wastewater issues these past 2 years. We've invested robustly in new technology, developed consensus on a council-approved siting study, i.e. growing in place. We've launched a risk mitigation initiative with a strong emphasis on water, wastewater, and we have convened an advisory panel that meets weekly to discuss operations at our wastewater treatment plant while also providing additional insight. Our citizens can rest assured knowing that improvements to the wastewater services, will remain a top priority for the city of Saline moving forward. Last, I will never criticize publicly or privately any colleague who votes in favor of the administrative consent order. In fact, I understand and sympathize with those who wish to approve this agenda item. Substantively, it is both appropriate and reasonable. And as stated previously, we do need to upgrade and continue to modernize our facility on Monroe Street. Also, this process has dragged on for the better part of a year and a half, and I understand the desire for finality. But again, I believe the penalty is egregious, the process for determining said penalty is deeply flawed, and I believe that we deserve better. As such, I'll be casting an emphatic no vote on the motion that's on the floor. Thank you very much. Is there additional discussion or comments? Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh, please.
Just a simple statement. There is a time to fight and a time to settle. And at this point, we want to move forward with our community. We need to get this going. There is a time to be to make a stance, and I see where the mayor's coming from, but from our perspective, we need to get going, and this ACO is going to settle the issues and concerns that have been hanging over our heads for 2 years. I, at the same time as the mayor has said, have struggled with the incompetence of the policies and practices that are in place right now within the state of Michigan as to how they enforce this. It is ridiculous that a city in another county can pay significantly less, and yet we got hit with this type of fine. I actually believe it's a change in the administration, and it's also a reflection of concerns in terms of making sure that somebody gets a feather in their cap. But at this point, if we continue fighting, we're going to incur more and more legal fees. We won't have the benefit of, surprisingly, as Mr. Rubel explained, having this signed agreement is actually a carrot for our ability to get funds from the state. So the fact that we are actually complying with this may give us higher scoring points so that we will qualify and get ahead of the line for funding. At this point, I think those are the things that I feel need to happen. Yes, we have had some concerns and issues, but at least we, as Mayor has said, did not dump raw sewage into a system and create an environmental hazard. We had violations which are consistent with every community in this state, and I think have had it or had a similar type of situation. We unfortunately are going to be made to be a model for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gearba. Additional comments, Mr. Seo and then Mr. Kamara-Sulak.
I guess I just wanted to echo what I hear both gentlemen saying in advance of me. And I intend also to vote in favor of this, just to put it behind us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kamara-Sulak.
Yes, thank you. I also concur with Councilman Gerbach's comments and the mayor's. I think there's a lot that has gone into this, and at the very least, we have negotiated the price tag down a little bit, and it would just cost too much to keep fighting a losing battle. So I think this gives us the best plan forward in the best interest of our taxpayers. So I will be endorsing this or voting for it.
Very good. Thank you. Any additional comments? Ms. Dillon.
Thank you. First, I want to thank everyone that's been a part of this process. I was a part of it, and it was a very long process. And there were heated at times, without question. And people worked tirelessly through the issues to get to this point. And at this point, I'm just looking forward to a conclusion and just moving forward. We've now established a clear path to move forward, and I'm excited for that and not looking back.
Very good. Any additional comments from the dais? I do want to note that before we vote, that if members of the public or members of the press do have questions pertaining to the administrative consent order, please direct those to the city manager's office. And as soon as a document is executed, signed and executed, we are able to provide that for public distribution. So again, reach out to Ms. O'Toole if you do have questions or concerns. If there's nothing further, we do have a motion on the floor moved by Gearboss, seconded by Seo, I believe, to approve the administrative consent order. Is that correct? Did I get the mover and second on that?
May I request a roll call vote?
Definitely. Okay. Record roll call vote has been requested. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll. Remember, you're voting yea or nay.
Councilmember Kamara-Sulak,
Yay?
Councilmember Seo,
Yay.
Councilmember Del Orco,
Yay.
Councilmember Dillon,
Yay.
Mayor Pro Tem Gearba,
Yay.
Councilmember Kraus,
Yay.
Mayor Morrow.
No. Ayes have it. The motion carries 6-1. Thank you very much. We proceed now to, well, unless there's anything else to be brought before City Council this evening, the chair would be delighted to entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:47 p.m.
So moved.
Move, was that Kamara-Sulak?
Yes.
Thank you. And was there a second?
Seo.
Seo was the second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.